Mm.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 p.m. And we should start. Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to all the participants that have joined so far. We're expecting more. Just before you start, if I could go through your bio quickly. Senator Iheyen is the lead partner and head of blockchain and virtual asset practice at Infusion Lawyers, where he advises and consults for both global and local brands. Senator is the immediate former president of Stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria, the former general secretary of Blockchain Industry Coordinating Committee of Nigeria, and FinTech Alliance Coordinating Team. A policy consultant, Senator is currently the first vice chairman of the Intellectual Property Committee and member of the Information Technology Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, regulations, section on business law rather. He has been a speaker, trainer, and consultant on policy and regulations, particularly in the technology and financial sector. So we can see now that he's properly suited to have the conversation that we want to have this afternoon about regulatory and compliance considerations and future trends and innovation. So that I don't eat into your time, I hand over to you now. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be here, and I welcome all participants to this Mastering Blockchain program, courtesy of the Nigerian Bar Association Institute of Continuing Legal Education. It's great to be here, and I'm very excited to talk about regulatory compliance when it comes to blockchain. As you know, blockchain is one of the areas of practice where Infusion Lawyers, where I'm lead partner, also he is an expert at. And so I'm very happy to be able to share both knowledge, insights, and expertise in this area with every member of the Nigerian Bar Association and the Friends of the Bar. As you can see on my screen, we'll be looking at regulatory and compliance considerations and future trends and innovations. Basically, when you look at the outline for today, we will be looking at areas around global regulatory landscape for blockchain and cryptocurrency. We'll be looking at anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism regulations. We will also, for those who are very excited about data protection and privacy, we'll see how that works in the context of blockchain. And lastly, we look at understanding legal challenges and opportunities as well that you'll find in regulatory compliance as far as blockchain is concerned. And the other parts of this masterclass will be focusing on the future trends and innovations around blockchain once more. We'll be looking a bit at what we expect AI, IoT, big data, and all that is expected to do in this space, as well as predict the future of blockchain in the legal profession. If you're not a lawyer or you're not a future lawyer and you're here with us, at least you will still be able to understand how legal considerations and other ethical considerations come in when it comes to policy, compliance, and regulations for the purpose of innovation such as blockchain. Without wasting much time, because we have a lot to deal with, first of all, when you think about blockchain technology, since its inception, or at least since its recent history, following the invention of Bitcoin by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008, till now, what we have found is that blockchain adoption continues to face a number of challenges in terms of adoption. And this is not just in Nigeria. This experience cuts across every part of the world, including the US, India, China, Malta, Switzerland, just mention it. Every jurisdiction is struggling with catching up with blockchain applications across various sectors of the economy. As you must have found in the earlier models in this training, blockchain application cuts across various sectors and industries. Although the financial application of blockchain is the most popular and most known by everyone, the fact is that you can also apply blockchain across other industries. So in looking at what is holding blockchain back at this time, as you will find in the charts just before, in the bar before us, you find that regulatory uncertainty is one of the major issues why blockchain is being held back. People do not understand things around laws, policies, compliance around blockchain. Understandably, because blockchain is a new innovation, and so regulators, policymakers, lawmakers, government generally, are still trying to understand exactly where blockchain comes in. Of course, where there is regulatory uncertainty, you would expect that there will be lack of trust. Where there is regulatory uncertainty, you expect that you will be unable to get the best of a technology, in terms of scalability, in terms of compliance, in terms of being able to have all the stakeholders work together in that ecosystem. So shortly, we'll be looking at the various ways various jurisdictions are approaching blockchain and cryptocurrency regulation and compliance. But I thought I should help outline or highlight how most jurisdictions, if not all, generally see blockchain from various perspectives or precisely cryptocurrencies and crypto assets. As I said earlier, cryptocurrencies, which is a financial technology application of the blockchain, may be the most used, but it's not the only application. But I've started here with cryptocurrencies and crypto assets because whether it is money or commodities or properties or securities, you find that various jurisdictions approach this technology the way they deem fit. So you find there are 7 major ways different jurisdictions see cryptocurrencies or crypto assets. Please notice I keep using cryptocurrencies or crypto assets. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's an asset, right? So depending on the jurisdiction you're looking at, could be the US, could be India, could be China, could be Nigeria, South Africa. You find that looking at the regulatory approach to the adoption of cryptocurrencies or crypto assets, they either look at it as a commodity, an electronic money, a financial instrument, money itself, a money surrogate that is not money, but acts like money, and properties, and then securities. So as a lawyer or a compliance person or policy maker, what is very important when it comes to blockchain regulation is what is called taxonomy, meaning that you need to understand what defines what, the characteristics of a certain element of things, and then be able to classify it from there. If you understand this, you understand that these things have legal implications. For instance, if you consider that Bitcoin, which is the most popular cryptocurrency out there, is a commodity, what that means immediately is that the central bank of your country or reserve bank of your country will have no business regulating Bitcoin because central banks do not have any jurisdiction over commodities but money. If you say that they are properties, you will be looking at another regulator entirely. So this is why when approaching blockchain and cryptocurrencies, it's important that you understand the various ways by which all of these applications of blockchain technology could be interpreted as commodity, electronic money, money surrogates, or other ways of looking at it. Having pointed that out, I think we can now travel across certain jurisdictions. I've started from here because it's good that while we understand all of the theories around blockchain and cryptocurrencies, it's important that we also see how they play out, so how they are seen or treated across various countries or jurisdictions. I have tried to highlight or at least identify the major jurisdictions cutting across various regions, and these regions have relatively different approaches to blockchain and cryptocurrencies. One thing you will find out is that you cannot completely separate the national policy and the national economic or national developments of a country from how it approaches blockchain or cryptocurrencies. We'll see that just shortly. Looking at the United States, yes, it's we say that it's the most developed country or the most powerful country in the world. But surprisingly, the United States is not a leading country as far as blockchain and cryptocurrency regulation is concerned. This is because relatively, United States has chosen to adopt a traditional approach to cryptocurrencies and digital assets or virtual assets. What do I mean by traditional approach? It simply means that rather than trying to be disruptive in terms of accommodating blockchain and its various applications, as you would have in places like Malta, Estonia, and the rest of them, the United States has decided that it will implement its already existing legal framework to regulate blockchain and its various applications. What that means is that rather than making new laws on cryptocurrencies or making new regulations on blockchain and the rest of it, the United States has decided that it is better and safer to apply their existing laws. One existing law, example of an existing law in the US that is quite impactful in this space is the Investment and Securities Act, which has defined what a security is. And it is from that perspective that the United States Securities and Exchange Commission has decided that it has powers and regulatory jurisdiction to regulate crypto assets generally, except certain ones it's explained it doesn't have jurisdiction over. For example, Bitcoin. The reason for that, we'll find out later, maybe in the interactive session when it comes to Q&A, someone could bring that up. So that's the United States. So if you are Governor Emefiele, well, former, or you are Governor Cardozo of the CBN, it's the US, an example of what you want to follow? Maybe, maybe not. We move to United Kingdom. As I said earlier, the approach of each country is usually, most times, a function of how that country is generally set up in terms of their policy to development, economy, and the rest of it. The UK has always been a conservative country. It has also taken that conservative approach, but not like the US. The UK is trying to find a balance between accommodating disruptive technologies as well as ensuring safety in the system. So in trying not to stifle innovation, it recognizes these new innovations, but it is able to use its existing laws to interpret those innovations in a manner that you don't stifle innovation. That's the approach the UK has taken so far. Some would say it's a progressive approach. Some would say it's a little bit stunted. But whether we like it or not, compared to some other countries, such as China, for instance, the UK has made quite significant progress in this space. As you will find, some of the innovators in the blockchain space, global companies in the space, have found their headquarters in places like the UK because they found that, hey, it looks like this is more accommodating and friendly compared to some other jurisdictions, such as China, for instance, or maybe Nigeria, but we'll get there. Switzerland. Switzerland has always had a progressive approach to cryptocurrency and virtual assets. It is one of the countries that early on recognized the opportunities in that blockchain and cryptocurrencies provide. And what it has done, as it usually does, even outside blockchain space, is to position itself as that place where you could call the blockchain headquarters. So as far as it is concerned, blockchain technology is an opportunity to bring in foreign direct investments into the country. And so it quickly introduced new laws, introduced even blockchain innovation programs, ensuring that it has some kind of incubation system to encourage all of these players to come to Switzerland. And so it grabbed early on most players in the space. Over time, of course, some other countries like Luxembourg, Dubai, lately have also come up fast. And so some persons are leaving Switzerland and moving to these countries, especially Dubai. So if you hear about Switzerland, Switzerland is a great place for blockchain innovation as well as cryptocurrency. It has a very advanced banking system as well. China, as you might have guessed, China is not a very friendly country for as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned. Please note this, cryptocurrencies, not blockchain. China is very big when it comes to blockchain. As you know, China is state-led, and so it has invested a lot of money, billions of dollars, into developing its own blockchain technologies across various sectors. The way China sees blockchain is that in the future, blockchain is going to be like the operating system of the internet. Therefore, it is positioning itself early by funding a lot of research in this area, while ironically, it is also banning everything that it can possibly ban as far as the crypto application of blockchain is concerned. So China doesn't want to hear anything about cryptocurrencies. It's prohibited there. It's actually being criminalized. But there are many ironies about China, really, when you go into what's happening in China in terms of adoption. Because if you look at the Chainalysis annual reports, you find that China has a very huge adoption rate in terms of people using cryptocurrencies. So you wonder what's going on. You ban on one side, at the same time, you have the most people who use cryptocurrencies. Estonia. Estonia is an extremely interesting experiment. Estonia jumped into blockchain early on. It's the earliest country that went into as far as blockchain adoption is concerned. Without looking at anything, they introduced residency programs that will get people like you and I into Estonia. And people bought visas just to relocate to Estonia and build blockchain technologies. So at that time that Nigeria was having a lot of issues regarding cryptocurrencies in the banking sector and all that matter, Estonia was busy bringing all the innovators into its country. And I think it has paid off to some extent because some innovators never left Estonia till date. Although over time, I also know that the rates of people going there and those who are still there has also reduced. So that's Estonia. Estonia just showing us an example of what it can mean for a country to say, we want to adopt this technology, we want to encourage it and use it to grow or expand the national economy. That's Estonia for you. Malta. Malta also took very courageous steps as far as crypto and blockchain adoption is concerned. But Malta's strategy was a bit different. They went straight into legislation. So unlike the US and the UK to some extent that relied on existing law and legislation, these guys decided we're not using any of those old laws because those laws are based on the centralized system. If you were part of Module 1, Module 2, you must have been taught by David Oturu and to some extent Buki Ogunsaki as well about how blockchain is decentralized, right? Malta decided that since blockchain works in a decentralized manner, it is time it had its own legislation. So it introduced new laws on blockchain. It is the first country that introduced laws separately for blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And it also paid off. As you can see in the flag, it got a lot of Bitcoin investments as well. A lot of dollars went into that country. And I'm sure some of you guys from Nigeria who like to japa will be considering Malta as a place to run to, especially at this low period. All right. The next thing here is South Africa. We'll be rounding off this segment of the class soon. South Africa is a great place to look at as far as regulation is concerned. Yes, at some point, South Africa was looking at Nigeria for leadership, as most African countries do. But at some point, South Africa decided it was time for it to really go into its own research and see how possibly it could lead Africa. And indeed, South Africa leads Africa, well, relatively speaking, in most cases, as far as blockchain and crypto regulation is concerned. South Africa decided that blockchain technology and its crypto application in itself is not evil. There's nothing negative about it. What the problem is are the bad actors who use blockchain or cryptocurrency for illicit transactions, such as money laundering, terrorism financing, scam, fraud, and the rest of that. So South Africa decided what we're going to do is to look at blockchain, look at its application in the financial system, and interpret cryptocurrencies, crypto assets, whatever you call it, interpret it as financial products, quote and unquote, financial products. As soon as it defined crypto assets or cryptocurrencies that way, automatically, what that meant was that all of the regulatory frameworks and compliance mechanisms that already apply to players in the financial services sector in South Africa applied to anyone who was a VASP. A VASP is a virtual asset service provider. So today, while Nigeria is yet to put its act together as far as licensing is concerned, South Africa is already licensing players in the crypto and blockchain space. I know a number of our clients who have gotten licensed in that country in the last few months. This is what South Africa is saying. What is Nigeria saying? The big brother in Africa. Nigeria struggled quite for some time. Initially, precisely, I think it was 12 January 2017, the CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, could see the fast or gradual adoption of cryptocurrencies in Nigerian banking system. He got a bit worried, but we're not too worried. He only just issued a notice or a circular saying that, hey, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Dogecoin, whatever you call those privately issued cryptocurrencies, they are all not legal tender. Legal tender meaning it is not money issued by the central bank. Therefore, please be careful around them. It then went ahead to say banks and other financial institutions should ensure that they adopt anti-money laundering and combating or financing in terrorism policies and compliance mechanisms to ensure that bad actors don't use this stuff. And if they do, you can at least investigate by identifying them. That was CBN in 2017. But that quickly changed after in 2021 February, when CBN decided it was time to shut down the entire banking and financial system against cryptocurrencies. And what happened then is effectively Nigeria abandoned KYC, AML for the purpose of crypto and allowed crypto to go underground. Since 2021 till date, crypto has grown into a giant, as you must have noticed. Nigeria, even during that restriction, overtook all of the countries in the world and became the biggest country in the world as far as cryptocurrency transactions were concerned, in terms of volume, not in terms of the value of transactions. China and some other Asian countries still do the biggest value. But Nigeria, in terms of retail adoption, in terms of the common man in the streets, had the most adoption. And peer-to-peer adoption was even more. Peer-to-peer, P2P, meaning that a party can do transactions with another party without the need for an intermediary or a middleman, which is essentially what blockchain technology is about. Thankfully, Nigeria has now tried to review that stance. Effectively, since December 23rd of last year, the CBN decided it was time to relax its restriction and allow players play, but subject to speaking with the SEC as far as getting a license is concerned. Well, right now, Nigeria is still in limbo because even the SEC, as we speak, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is yet to issue compliance, what's it called, guidelines as far as issuing licensing is concerned. We continue to wait. Having discussed all of these countries, and please, if you have questions, just keep them. Very soon, I'm sure Rachel will help us navigate that path. We'll be going into another segment now, which is basically about ICOs, ITOs, IEOs, and STOs. What are those? They're right on your screen. So if you already are familiar with how initial public offerings work in the traditional capital markets, this shouldn't be completely strange to you. So in the crypto or blockchain space, there is this idea of crowdsourcing or crowdfunding, right? You can crowdfund a project relying on a coin or token. So I come up with a project and say, I have a project to empower the whole of the northern Nigeria, right? Using a particular token we have designed. All that we need is for you to invest in this project by buying our token. The introduction price could be maybe #1 per token. And then there's usually this promise that eventually when you buy this token, after the project has grown, you will find that your #1 per token can become perhaps even $100 per token or ₦1 million per token. This was the essential idea around the initial coin offering. And these guys felt that it was time to disrupt the IPO space. There was no need to have an issuer and all those guys who are intermediaries in the capital markets. With this structure, any of this structure you're looking at, you can essentially go directly, right? Especially for ICOs, you can go directly to those who fund the blockchain projects. Initial coin offering, ICO, which is the first of the generation of crowdfunding or crowd sales structures, was very popular sometime in 2016, 2017, 2018. But it made a mess of itself eventually because according to reports available out there, over 90% of ICO projects failed after some time, and many investors lost their money, seeming to point to the fact that although technology can disrupt everything, you will get your life disrupted if you don't adopt certain age-long principles about segregation of funds, about custody of funds, things about corporate governance, data protection, privacy, and all the rest of that we'll find out in the course of this course. So initial coin offering, we understand what that means now. It could be the coin, can be Bitcoin, Ethereum. You collect this in exchange for that paper coin that you came up with, which you could call Sendcoin. And then you have all of the people's money in your accounts, and you determine whether you actually use it for the projects or you use it to Japan. The next stuff here is initial token offering, which is still similar with initial coin offering. The only difference between ICO and ITO, I believe in the initial models, we must have been taught maybe the difference between coin and token. The coin has its own independent blockchain, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum. A Bitcoin is a blockchain. Ethereum is a blockchain. But there are certain coin, quote and unquote, that don't have blockchains. They rely on other blockchains to exist. You call those tokens, right? Tokens don't have their own blockchain. They rely on others. So people could also raise funds using ITOs. But after ICOs and ITOs became quite bad because people could not be trusted with other people's funds, someone now introduced what is called initial exchange offering. What that means is rather than investing directly in the project through the project owner, you should get a third party, such as a digital exchange like Binance, like OKX, like Quidax, and the rest of them, to help you introduce your projects to their subscribers. That way, there's at least a middleman, meaning that once the money is raised on the exchange or digital exchange platform, the exchange would then be able to take its own transaction fee and remit the rest of the money to the project, ensuring that before that project is listed, certain parameters or requirements have already been met by the project founders. And then that takes us to securities token offering. When it comes to STOs, all of these ones I've mentioned could be a utility token such as the commodity, or it could be anything like a payment token, which is used for payments. But you see, when it comes to securities token, you are talking specifically about a token that would fall under the classification of security. Why? Because when you own that token, you have a right of ownership to certain things. So it's more like you're investing your money in something, right? So if you look at the definition of security under the Investments and Securities Act, you understand that securities are all about ownership. So if anyone creates a coin or token that gives you the rights of ownership, maybe over a real estate or some other assets, then you are dealing with securities. And the implication of that is that you have to register with the Securities and Exchange Commission in that country. Of course, we know that in Nigeria, we have an Investment and Securities Act of 2007 that is quite comprehensive in terms of its regulatory purview. It's larger than that of the US. The US Securities Exchange Commission does not bother about commodities. There is another agency that does that. But in Nigeria, these are merged. So you will be right to say that in Nigeria, the what's it called? The regulatory purview of the SEC in the country is much more wider compared to that of the US, which makes the SEC a very powerful commission. Yeah, I'd mentioned initial exchange offering. As you can see, these are some of the examples, right? So these are exchanges to the left. That's Binance, Bittrex, Bitmax, and the rest of them. They all have a launch pad where a project could launch their token. So if you go to these launch pads, they will allow you to launch as long as you meet their various requirements. Yeah, before we end this part of this section, I thought that it would be useful for us as lawyers, compliance people, policy people to understand the general principles or policies that regulators usually consider when introducing regulatory frameworks for the purpose of ensuring trust, transparency, and integrity as far as the virtual asset service sector is concerned. As you see on your screen, there are a number of considerations, requirements that a framework would typically look at and require players such as Patricia, players like Quidax, players like Binance to ensure that they comply with. Why? To ensure two things. One, investor safety, and two, consumer protection. As you will see, each of these requirements, from corporate governance down to reporting requirements, all they are expected to make you comply with global best practices as far as managing people's funds is concerned. So whether you're a crypto exchange or a crypto wallet service provider, you'll be expected to have good corporate governance so that someone doesn't just, wrap up or just close business and disappear into thin air. You need to be able to segregate customer funds from your operations funds as well. Those should not be commingled. That's illegal under many laws, including the regulatory framework introduced by the Securities and Exchange Commission in Nigeria in May 2022. If you open that regulation, digital assets offering platform and others regulation, if you just check that regulation out, you'll find that everything listed here has also been captured there and even more. So if you're a lawyer, policymaker, someone who is in its space, looking at consumer protection and investor safety mechanisms or policies or principles, these are some of the things you should be concerned about. If you have an exchange or a crypto platform that doesn't have all of these, please be very careful. Anything can happen at any time. All right. I think that's the end of those two sections. Shortly, we are moving into something that is more closely associated or related with compliance, right? The purpose of law and regulations is to ensure compliance. If there will be no compliance, then we could as well have a free town. And even in free town, we do know nothing is free. So what we're going to be looking at here is seeing how regulators, policymakers try to ensure that the adoption of cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin and the rest of them, do not lead to the perpetration of illicit transactions, such as financing terrorism, for instance. We have read in the news cases about the use of Bitcoin, for instance, for kidnapping ransom purposes. We have also, I think, read somewhere in one of the news from the NFIU that there has been the use of virtual assets for some terrorism financing as well. So we need to be sure that while we are promoting the adoption of cryptocurrencies, we are also responsible as far as ensuring that all of the hazards associated with the adoption of these technology do not affect safety and security, especially national security, which is a key issue. Even under the Financial Action Task Force regulatory advisory, they call it recommendations. National security is one of the key reasons why each jurisdiction, including Nigeria, is encouraged to have AML, KYC, and CFT frameworks just to ensure that you are not exposing yourself to risk of losing money or even losing sovereignty because bad actors are forever in this corridor, right? So compliance is all about being able to identify these bad actors who try to use cryptocurrencies for bad, right? For those who use it for good, fine. But the thing is, we don't know the bad guys until they become bad, right? So that's why it's important as compliance person, whether in a cryptocurrency exchange organization, crypto wallet service, P2P platform, or even over-the-counter business, or even if you work in a law firm or in the legal departments of an organization, whether in the public sector or private sector, you want to be sure that whenever you are interacting with cryptocurrencies, you have the risk-based measures to ensure that you do not fall into becoming an accomplice of crime, whether knowingly or unknowingly, right? So this is what it's all about. So essentially, practically, you are expected to have anti-money laundering policies, first of all, as an entity. You're expected to ensure that you implement that policy by having a KYC system, know your customer or know your transaction, right? You need to be able to collect the identities of users on the platform, just in case there's an investigatory or investigation scenario. You would be able to cooperate, knowing that you have the KYC details of the suspects. It will be very bad. And we have had cases like this, where when all of these law enforcement agencies come forward for the purpose of investigations, ask you or demand that you should make certain documents available to them for the purpose of, apprehending a suspect. You will find yourself in a very bad situation if you don't have those things expected of you under the law. The KYC of a user or customer is essential so that you can protect yourself should that customer become a suspect or an accused person, right? So these are the issues. So know your customer refers to a set of procedures and process employed by an organization to ensure that it can confirm the identity of its customers, right? And in Nigeria and most other countries, you'll find that the national identity card, the address of the user, email address, phone number. And these days, you also need to have a selfie of the user on the platform, a live one at that as well, just to be sure that people don't use advanced technology to defeat the essence of having these KYC compliance programs. I understand now that people now fake a lot of documents just to pass through that gates. That's quite unfortunate, really. And this is why beyond knowing all those documentation that you need to put in place, beyond putting those policies together, you need to be sure that you also have the technology to help or assist in compliance. Because if you don't have the necessary tools in terms of analysis, you will find yourself in big trouble, because there are bad actors who are extremely advanced when it comes to bypassing KYC and other requirements that you might have on your platform. I already mentioned some of these examples of identification details, the national ID card, address, email, and the rest of them. BVN is also playing a big role in that space, as well as the utility bill of the customer. Please don't come to me to ask for a utility bill. I also suspect you want to get me into trouble, right? Let's move away from KYC and talk a bit about anti-money laundering, what we call AML, right? As I mentioned earlier, you need to ensure that you have the AML policy that will help you guard your platform against bad actors. When it comes to AML, you are looking at essentially money laundering. What's money laundering? It looks something like this. So basically, you have money or funds that have been illegally acquired, criminally, through fraud, scam, terrorism activities, kidnapping, whatever. You have that illegal funds, but you want that illegal funds to be integrated back into the system so that it looks clean and no one is able to tell the legal source of that money. You have to trade into the laundering machine, and that's what it does. So you basically have different ways with which you can bring that money back into the banking system, and then that money becomes clean, quote unquote. That's the idea of money laundering. so that no one will be able to trace the fact that this money was illegally acquired. That's what money laundering is about. And if we have those measures and procedures to check against this, it means that investigators or law enforcement officers will be able to properly trace such illegal funds and be able to take it out of the system, right? So it doesn't corrupt the system. And I think this is what the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the former one, Godwin Emefiele, was trying to emphasize by saying that the reason why the Central Bank of Nigeria has to restrict cryptocurrency in Nigeria's banking and financial system is to ensure that that system remains secure and safe. Although the approach adopted by the CBN at the time is, of course, questionable, even by insights. We can understand the genuine concerns that the CBN must have had at the time. And I'm sure that even with the CBN now allowing crypto in that system, it still has concerns, which explains why, obviously, the CBN has asked that players should still go to the SEC to get a license before they'll be allowed to have a bank account. So please, if you're a compliance person here, encourage your platform to invest in AML and KYC tools. There are a number of them these days, from Chainalysis and the rest of them, Elliptic. All of these guys are now in that space, selling all sort of software just to ensure that platforms are safe. You need to invest in those. Paperwork only won't do the job. You need to invest in those so that you don't get your platform into trouble. We have had cases where the EFCC have questioned the integrity of a number of fintechs in the country because at some point they allowed, knowingly or unknowingly, but negligently, they allowed their platform to be used to facilitate transactions that ended up costing someone a life or causing other things around anything illicit at all, right? Some people use these things to do drug trafficking, child trafficking, and all the rest of them. So we need to be very sure that we are keeping our platform safe. Lastly, after looking at KYC, AML, we have to look at CFT as well. And terrorism is big business now. These days, we now understand that there are even state-sponsored terrorism. So you're only looking at private players anymore in this space. You're now looking at a state actually sponsoring terrorists, to carry out terrorism acts, which makes it even more troublesome because it means that if you're going to be checking those kinds of terrorists, you will need to have a lot of resources. If you don't have enough resources to be able to identify these terrorist activities or potentially terrorist transactions, you will get yourself into trouble. The Financial Action Task Force had to put Nigeria on the gray lists over a year now. It's been up to 2 years now. Nigeria has been on the gray list because as far as the Financial Action Task Force is concerned, Nigeria does not have the required standards as far as AML, CFT compliance is concerned, as well as in the virtual asset service sector. This is why at the time, I think about 2 years ago, Nigeria started working with other stakeholders to have its money laundering acts, rewritten or amended. What we have right now is the Money Laundering Act of 2022, which for the first time recognizes virtual asset service providers as financial institutions, meaning that if you build in virtual assets as a business, you are now considered a financial institution. And if you remember what South Africa did with interpreting or defining crypto assets as financial products, you find that Nigeria has effectively done the same thing as far as AML reporting is concerned by simply saying that virtual assets are now considered money, and for that purpose, virtual asset service providers are now financial institutions. So let's watch that. If you play in that space, you should be very careful. It's not Freetown, if it ever was early on. Right now, you will be dealt with or treated as a financial institution. And so it's important that you have all of the necessary mechanisms in place. Yeah, I see some hands up here. Okay, I guess we can take those questions later. All right, Rachel?
Yes,
Okay,
but
okay.
the instruction is to type out the questions in the chat box. It's tidier that way.
Oh, great, great. So I can continue then.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. Uh, Thank you. All right. I hope that it's been an engaging class so far. We are moving very fast towards the close of business for the day. I've spent about 1 hour so far. Not bad. I think we can catch up or meet up. We are going into another segment now. It is one that would interest a number of participants here. The world is gradually become a privacy-centric world. Everyone is talking about the use of their data, of their personal data, especially by big corporates such as the Google, Facebook, and the rest of them. People are concerned about the violation of their data or their personal data. And this is why the UK had introduced its general data protection regulation, the GDPR, early on. And it was that I believe Nigeria also adopted essentially when in 2019 it decided to introduce what it's called the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation 2019. 4 years later, Nigeria passed into law for the first time its own legislation on data protection, which is the Nigeria Data Protection 2022, the Act itself. Now, with that background in mind, people often wonder where those data protection and privacy come in the context of blockchain, especially if you go back to the earlier class or earlier models under David Oturu and Buki Ogunsakin, you realize that the way that blockchain is set up in terms of its decentralization structure, in terms of its the way that blockchain is also more like it has some anonymity features as well, even though most ones are pseudonymous, not anonymous. All of these things are of concern when it comes to data protection and privacy, because if you talk about decentralization, you're saying that rather than having one person in charge of, for example, collecting and processing the data, you now have a decentralized environment, meaning there are many nodes or many players processing that data. And they may not even be your normal or traditional or conventional, rather, entities. You could easily walk to Meta or to Google or to MTN and question how your data has been used. But can you walk up to Satoshi Nakamoto, who could be a man, a woman, or a group of them who have invented Bitcoin? Today, Bitcoin does not have any CEO, it doesn't have an office, but it works 24/7, finally. So who are you going to be holding responsible when using the Bitcoin blockchain, your data or your privacy becomes violated by the system? So these are the questions in the world of blockchain. And so I would say right away, I see a conflict, when it comes to data protection regulation, because when the GDPR was made, I do not think that it was contemplated that we will have a world where we have decentralized platforms or decentralized exchanges without any human intervention, right? Processing data and the rest of them, right? So some experts feel that we may need to amend some of our laws so that we can also contemplate a world where there are decentralized actors. So there's a conflict with data protection regulation, first of all, because there is no identifiable data controller to be held accountable when you're talking about decentralized blockchain systems. I give an example of Bitcoin, right? Secondly, the right of a data subject to say, hey, I want to modify my data on your platform. I had submitted certain data to you in 2020, and I want to modify it. Or in fact, I want to erase it, exercising my rights of erasure. Now, who are you going to walk up to for that purpose when there is no data controller? So this is a challenge really for businesses, public agencies, and regulators. Well, now, away from the conflicts, let's talk a bit about the advantages that blockchain offers as far as data protection and privacy is concerned. So it's not all about headache and worrying about what to take to treat that headache. I do know that blockchain also has its own merits as well and advantages as listed on the screen. These are the things that blockchain can help enable. It can help you enhance all of this. And if you look very closely, you see that blockchain cannot be separated totally from a cybersecurity infrastructure, because this is all about cybersecurity as well. For those who are the privacy experts or data protection experts in the house, this part is essentially why you talk about data security and you talk about data privacy, right? Essentially, if you look at data protection, it's concerned with all of the tools and all of the things you need to do to ensure that data is protected. But when it comes to privacy, you're talking about rights of a data subject, right? And what rights they have, what restrictions you have as the data controller, and the rest of them. Blockchain allows you to take care of some of these issues around data security, data transparency as well, because with blockchain, there's what is called traceability. I trust that this was taught in the earlier models. You can trace transactions wherever, whenever, as far back as 2008, when Bitcoin was invented, you can't trace those transactions. I think the first Bitcoin transaction was in 2009. You can trace those transactions till dates, as long as you have enough power on your computer to download all of those history. But that is not the same with our current system. For example, our current financial system. You can't trace stuff that way, especially when cash is involved. But with blockchain, anything can be traced. It's traceable, and so there's transparency as well. You can see how much one party has sent to another party and all of that. You can see, if I give you my Bitcoin wallet, assuming I have one, you would see all of the cash or Bitcoin that I have, all the persons that wallet has ever interacted with in terms of Bitcoin going out or Bitcoin coming in. That's lots of transparency. And that's why some of us, we do wonder why some policymakers or regulators would only see the evil that blockchain can cause. We think that blockchain can deal with a lot of issues in our system, especially in a system where there's a lot of opacity and corruption. All right, so what specific challenges or concerns the blockchain present from security perspective? We must have been taught how the 51% attacks works on a blockchain network, it's easier to launch that attack when the network you are using is a small network. I give you an example. The Bitcoin network is very large. For you to be able to launch a 51% attack, it's going to take a lot of resources. Some people say it's impossible. It's not impossible, but the resources is too massive. But when you're a small network, such as maybe one of these other small Bitcoins, you'll find that you can, have enough resources to compromise that network. Secondly, a new kind of identity theft with private and public keys. It's a new one because in the conventional system, we talk about bank accounts, right? Give me your password. Once you have people's passwords or details of their sensitive financial records, like their debit cards or credit cards, you can hack or you can carry out transactions to some extent without the authorization. But that has changed in the blockchain system because a combination of private and public keys, you can move money, right? If you have my public key, for instance, you would be able to access, if you have my public key and my private key, you'll be able to access my funds and move those funds around as well. So lastly, bugs, errors, and mistakes in programming. We must have been taught smart contracts, I trust, by Buki Ogunsakin earlier on. When it comes to smart contracts or blockchain programs generally, codes are involved. If you're not careful, there could be bugs in those codes. You could make errors as well, or there are mistakes. It could cost you because there are people who will explore those bugs or errors and be able to hack your system. A number of cryptocurrency exchanges have lost a lot of money, lots of it, some up to $430 million because they failed to do the regular auditing of the codes or the programs, some because they left some windows and doors open in the system and hackers took advantage of those. Blockchain can help you sort out all that if well used. But this is not to say that blockchain is the answer to everything under the sun. Not at all. As a matter of fact, the wrong assumption that blockchain can solve everything is the problem that many blockchain users today have, including some big organizations who jumped into investing in blockchain without first understanding whether blockchain is the real answer to the problems they have. There are many other technologies, even in the traditional system, that can sort out issues without the use of blockchain. I have to say that what I find most fascinating about blockchain is its cryptographic security. If you don't need cryptographic security, I don't know what you want to do with blockchain because blockchain can be complex. It can be slow as well. If you want to use that system, you have to be sure what you're looking for. Well, of course, I'm not a blockchain expert, so understanding the legal challenges and opportunities in regulatory compliance. I think this will excite some of us in the house because we can't keep talking about compliance, AML, talk about financing terrorism and all the rest of that, and not talk a bit about what opportunities are there in the blockchain space as far as regulatory compliance is concerned. And of course, challenges as well. You trust that challenges are where the treasures are. Any place you go where there are problems or challenges, that's where those who want to play long term will always want to be because the opportunities will be endless. Maybe I'm even speaking to those who are in the Japa boss. All right then. So blockchain and cryptocurrency contracts, drafting and transactional practice, right? So one of the challenges that you always find in any market where parties need to do business is distrust. People don't trust one another, so they usually need a middleman. It's not different in blockchain space, right? So if you play in that space or you would like to play in the blockchain space, you will always find need to help parties draft contracts. And this is not about smart contracts, draft contracts and advise when it comes to transactional issues. There are a lot of transactional work in the blockchain and crypto space for those who might be interested. We talked about ICOs, IEOs, STOs earlier. You can also get into some advisory regarding that. It's not easy to be able to bypass the traditional capital market system to start crowdsourcing or crowdfunding projects. So this is an area where lawyers are usually needed to advise on structure. How do we structure this ICO? How do we ensure that we can navigate the securities and investments laws in the country? All of those questions are things that a lawyer should be able to attend to, and in doing so, get its deserving rewards. Also, of course, there's the business formation offshore and onshore as well. I recall back in 2018, 2019, many companies who were already established outside of the country were looking to come to Nigeria because they believed that Nigeria was going to be the next big thing as far as crypto adoption was concerned. And well, by insight, we now know that they were right because Nigeria leads that space globally as we speak. Unfortunately, most of those companies could not establish in Nigeria because of the regulatory uncertainty that we talked about earlier. And when the regulation became certain, quote and unquote, it was certainly not a place to come to. People had to look at other countries like Mauritius, like South Africa, to establish, even Rwanda, and forgetting Nigeria. What has happened, I hope that changes as Nigeria begins to transit to a new regulatory atmosphere. The next thing here is investment advisory services, right? So there are lots of investments going on in the blockchain space. Even now, there are people talking about how to launch real estate projects using blockchain technology. There are people talking about what blockchain can do in the mining sector. People are talking about blockchain in supply chain. All of this outside the financial system. So definitely, there will be need for some advisory services, and lawyers and others who play in that space should be able to, get some Bitcoin in exchange for the work that they provide in that space. Next off, advisory and drafting services in relation to AML and KYC. All of those policies we were talking about, you will find that the lawyer or the compliance person has to prepare those policies. And of course, it won't be for free, right? In terms of structure as well, there was a global exchange who talked to us sometime in 2017, said, hey, Infusion lawyers, can you help us come up with a structure that will enable us operate in Nigeria in as safe a manner as possible while adopting some self-regulatory mechanisms for themselves. So this was a time when there was no law at all in terms of a virtual assets in the country. So we had to come up with the AML and KYC structure for that exchange because, using some of the global best practices out there, they adopted it for themselves. By the time regulation was ready, they were already inclined, with that kind of system because they already had a self-regulatory mechanism going on for them. So these are some of the things that lawyers can do and get good rewards for. We mentioned data protection and privacy earlier. That's an area you want to also look at as well, mainly because of the obvious conflict between blockchain technology and how data protection and privacy works. Smart contracts. I have a friend called Faith Obafemi who is a lawyer, and I know she's been doing a lot of work in terms of learning how to build smart contracts. I'm not the kind that would be able to go to that area because I think for some of us, we think that law is already smart contracts itself. I wouldn't want to add to that headache. So for those who want to add to that headache, quote and unquote, you might look at, learning smart contracts, right, programming and all that. There are some lawyers who have become quite useful and resourceful in a team because they understand smart contracts and they can actually code themselves. They can write smart contracts. I don't write smart contracts, but I do advise around it, but I don't write smart contracts. You are the kind that has enough room for extra headache. Please, you can consider writing smart contracts just to, be able to have more leverage as far as business development is concerned. I think that we are finally getting close to where we'll be wrapping this up. And there's no other place to wrap up than looking at the future trends and innovation, mainly emerging trends in blockchain technology, right? So blockchain has been around for quite some time. As a matter of fact, the Bitcoin blockchain that was invented in 2008 was not the first blockchain. They had been blockchains before then, right? But it was the Bitcoin blockchain that applied it in a manner that had never been achieved before. And the most important part of that is the peer-to-peer electronic transaction system that was achieved when Bitcoin was created. Why am I going back here? We should, in looking at the future trends and emerging trends in technology, in Bitcoin, blockchain technology, we need to understand where we're coming from and where things will go from here. If you look closely at the chart in front of us, you find that as far as financial system is concerned, right? The most adoption we've seen over the years, up to 46% at the time this was made. This was in 2018, as a matter of fact. Financial system had left everyone behind, the financial services industry. The next one was, I believe, there's the energy industry, there's the healthcare industry, government, retail and consumer, and then entertainment sector. At that time, the NFTs that we know today, non-fungible token, had not yet fully emerged. So you can imagine why it was 1% here. But right now, as we speak in 2024, entertainment and media has gone way up because of the application of NFTs in that sector, right? Even in sports, we've seen a lot of NFTs being used in sports. Ronaldo, whom we call C7, introduced NFTs in collaboration with Binance last year. And that has made NFTs quite popular, especially on social media, right? Governments have also been adopting blockchain technology, mainly for the purpose of introducing their own digital money. In other words, central bank digital currency. That's a trend. It's an emerging trend. So government is basically saying that, hey guys, we know that you guys are becoming too fascinated with Bitcoin, but hey, Bitcoin is not a legal tender. And if we allow you guys continue to do this to us, you're going to be running a competitive monetary system parallel to the financial system. We're not going to allow that happen. So rather than fight you the way initially was fighting all of us, this is what we're going to do. We are going to be introducing something that is also like Bitcoin, but it's not Bitcoin. This time, instead of Satoshi Nakamoto, it's made by the central bank. And for Christ's sake, if you are asked to choose whom to trust between Satoshi Nakamoto, whom you don't know is my father or my grandma in the village, and the CBN, who are you going to choose? Interesting. So that's the idea of central bank digital currencies. It's saying go for the e-Naira because this is money minted directly from the Central Bank of Nigeria to you. So go for that rather than Ethereum, Bitcoin, and the rest of that. Well, we have seen how the e-Naira adoption, has been over the years since 2021, precisely in October, when it was launched by the Buhari administration. Has it been getting the rate of adoption expected? Maybe not. But let's say Nigeria is still experimenting. Maybe someday we're gonna get it right. So we have seen the emergence of central bank digital currencies, and Nigeria is not the only country looking at that. Over 83 countries across the world have been researching central bank digital currencies as well. And a number of countries have introduced them, while others are still at the initial building stage. Nigeria was the first country in Africa to launch its own e-Naira. So in looking at future trends, we must have heard about the metaverse. The metaverse. Okay, so if we know about the universe, the metaverse is the next level. I think the best way to understand the metaverse is to see how various technologies combine to create a world there. The metaverse is also a virtual world. For those who are used to virtual reality, VR, it works that way. It combines virtual reality. The only difference this time with metaverse is that with blockchain technology, you are able to create an identity for yourself on the metaverse. You are also able to acquire property on the metaverse, right? There are, the same way you have in the real world, lands, numbered properties, plot 2, plot 4. You are able, there's ability to have those on the metaverse as well. So the emerging trend here is that people now have conferences on the metaverse. So rather than traveling to Dubai for a conference, the conference organizer can decide that let's have not just a virtual conference, let's have a conference on the metaverse. When you get to that metaverse, you will have an identity. Maybe on the metaverse, you look a bit like me, and you'll be able to take or participate in activities on the metaverse, give handshakes, buy products or services, and do all that using your identity, your unique identity on the metaverse. And that's where non-fungible tokens also come in. Non-fungible tokens. So when you hear about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Dogecoin, all of those coins, they are fungible. Fungible in the sense that they are replaceable. So I give you an example. If I give you 1 Naira from my wallet, I give you 10 Naira from my wallet, that 10 Naira note, when I give it to you, and you have another 10 Naira note, you give it to me. Now, the value hasn't changed, has it? I can still go to the market and get a 10 Naira worth of value. That's fungible. That's a fungible currency or coin. It's replaceable. So no matter how it looks, it's the same value, whether it's an old note or a new note. In the world of for non-fungible tokens, you can't replace a non-fungible token. They are unreplaceable. They are irreplaceable. Why are they irreplaceable? Because every token is unique. Every one of it. So because it is unique, it has extra value. And it is the value placed on each token that determines what it can get in return. So for instance, if you apply non-fungible tokens in the world of arts, where people love artworks, gallery, museums, you find that for a token that looks like a very cheap one, you can actually use that and get something bigger. You've heard about people who sold artworks, using non-fungible tokens. They sold artworks for as much as $43 million, right? Just artwork. But why was it unique and why was it so expensive? Because you can never, ever get that artwork replaced. It is the only one you will ever see or have. You can see others, but this is one that comes with an identity. So the identity of the artwork is associated with some blockchain technology, and then fixed to a wallet. No other person can have it. That's why it was pretty high that time. Although as I speak to you, so all those artworks that people sold for £3 million, $20 million, today, I think one person bought a non-fungible token of the Twitter founder's first tweet. The first ever tweet on Twitter by the founder itself was sold as an NFT. I think for about $20-something million, I can't recall. At some point 2 years ago or a year ago, the value had dropped to about $6. Crazy, right? $6. So that's how crazy that world can be. Decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. I did mention earlier that one of the characteristics of the blockchain is decentralization. Now, there are many platforms that believe that the old system of having to register a company, maybe with the Corporate Affairs Commission, as we do today, will no longer be necessary, because you can now have a community or a network decide that they want to run as a decentralized autonomous organization without a CEO, without a CCO, without a CFO, without anybody. What they're just going to be doing is work together using smart contracts. They write all of the rules of the network and the governing system. Once the governing system is set up, it doesn't need any CEO. It just runs on its own. So today we have decentralized autonomous organizations registered in places like Switzerland, in Estonia, in Malta, in Luxembourg. We have places like that where DAOs are recognized. One person asked me, will we ever have DAOs in Nigeria? Well, I don't know. But what I do know is that most changes that come to any place is not based on what a government wants. Most times, it is based on what the people want. Once it is market driven, at some point, regulators will need to work with the markets. So if it becomes a thing to have DAOs in Nigeria, as far as the market is concerned, I think that we'll need to have new policies that recognize DAOs. And if you ask me, I think we already have some semblance of DAOs, in the existing system. The way that, for instance, cooperative societies work, right? Yes, you might have precedents here and there, but that is the only difference, because those societies have rules that govern them, and they're able to work together from wherever they are. DAOs are more closely like cooperative systems. And if you notice as well, interestingly, cooperative societies are not governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission, for instance. They can raise money, do whatever they want to do, as long as they were established according to the law that regulates cooperative societies in the country. I think that in the future, we may need to have laws that regulates decentralized autonomous organizations, and mostly for Africa, because African societies are generally autonomous societies. And I think by using community power and network, a lot of people can be pulled out of poverty by having a structure like DAO working for them. Lastly, decentralized cryptocurrency custody. This is something that has been, but it's becoming a thing. I'll explain what that means. So people realize that when you are Binance, you are Quidax, you are a centralized exchange. Of course, you have to be able to hold people's funds, register people, and all of that. So you are also more like a custodian at the same time, except you use a third-party service to take care of custody. Now, if that is the case, you are exposing yourself to certain regulatory requirements, such as you must go and get a SEC license. Now, people try to navigate or maneuver that by introducing a decentralized cryptocurrency custody, meaning that you are not going to be speaking to any Binance, for instance, or Quidax or Luno. Nope. You are just going to go to a wallet, such as, say, Trust Wallet. There's a wallet called Trust Wallet. Create an account without, you don't need anything. You don't even need an email. You don't need even a name to create your wallet or your account on a decentralized cryptocurrency custody, right, platform. And then you are able to, you are your home bank. So if anything happens, it's all up to you. I've seen a number of cryptocurrency custody platforms come up that are decentralized. That's a thing these days. So these are the four things I think should be of interest to us as far as emerging trends in blockchain is concerned. I should also have added what's it called? Central bank digital currencies as well, CBDCs. Now, this is the last part. Integration with other emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and the rest of them. Integration with. So when you look at blockchain technology, it is just a tool, actually. And it doesn't have to work alone. When I served as president of the Stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria, CBAN, which is Nigeria's blockchain association, I served as president within 2021 and 2022. And what I noticed is that a number of our members or people who play generally in the virtual asset space, they make a lot of big deal out of the fact that they use blockchain. So if you visit their website, say we're a blockchain associate, we're a blockchain technology company. We use blockchain we use blockchain to decentralize that. And it's also complex. No one puts blockchain behind the scene and focuses on we help poor people get affordable food. So people get to forget the business and focus on the technology, which has affected adoption of blockchain so far, because many players in the space continue to speak jargon about blockchain, decentralized, anonymous, there are all that stuff. You're not helping the retail adoption. Now, why am I saying this? We are moving fast towards an era where blockchain will be useless without working closely with other technologies. For example, you cannot talk about metaverse and think it is just a blockchain technology business, not at all. In the metaverse, to make the metaverse work, blockchain will have to combine with AI. And if you're talking about robots and not just software, because AI can be just software, but when you talk about robots, that's hardware, right? You would need, to some extent, blockchain to be what I call your central source of truth. Please note this, your central source of truth. How do I mean? In the AI world, where people now worry about the potential issues we might have when robots and AI begin to get corrupted and turn against the human race, right? The only reason why that is possible is because the source of truth, the data which we use to teach the robots or AI, what we call machine learning, the source of truth is not secured. If you use blockchain to secure the source of truth, there will be no corruption. So this is where I see blockchain working closely with AI and robotics to ensure that we don't ever have a scenario where robots will have a revolution against the human race and then will be done for, including those who have Japad. So that's one part. Another part that I see is the Internet of Things and how possibly it can work with blockchain technology as well. As I said, we're moving fast to an era where technology itself as blockchain would be useless if it doesn't work with its cousins. The Internet of Things is one of them. Of course, we know how IoT works, right? We've read stories about how a man's refrigerator could sense that it is out of beer or drinks. The refrigerator makes an order automatically and automatively, makes an order to the e-commerce platform he has an account, and orders for a replacement of the bottles in the refrigerator using IoT. And then that drink is delivered to the refrigerator without any human intervention. That is the power of Internet of Things, how you beautifully and graciously connects devices across various environments, and then they're able to communicate and talk to one another. That's the power of IoT. Now, if IoT is talking and doing all the talking and making all the decisions for the human being, you find that there might be a risk of a bad actor, manipulating the system to turn the system against the owner. We've seen IoT is used in even when it comes to space, right? So just imagine that you would be relying on IoT when you go to war with a country like Russia, and then it is manipulated. You are going to be in trouble, more trouble than Ukraine. So what the problem is here is that we need to look at a technology that can help you secure that system of IoT against external manipulation. And that's where blockchain can come in as well. Because of its cryptographic security, we must have learned that early on. Blockchain can help you secure that system. And little wonder, one of the earliest use of the blockchain, of cryptography rather, was the United States Army. So that's why sometimes when it was quoted that by a very concerned regulator, that blockchain is being used for the purpose of hiding bad things from regulators, I felt very bad, and it was quite embarrassing as well, because you should have known that one of the first uses of cryptography is by state authorities for the purpose of ensuring information security. Cryptography or cryptocurrency is not beyond securing value. So I wonder, when we do a lot of demonization, stigmatization, and criminalization around the application of blockchain in the financial system, when what we should be doing is investing a lot of work, a lot of money in understanding how it works and seeing how we could use it to plug the existing system with the new financial system that is already upon us. Lastly, big data. We already understand players in this big data space, the Googles, the Meta, the Microsofts, and the rest of them. Big data has become even bigger than the government, I have to say. And what the government has essentially started doing is, rather than try to be the big boss, what the government now does is become a facilitator and get all the taxes in, buy all the weapons so that it can secure all of us. those who are governing the world today is not the governments. Those governing the world are guys with the big data, people who understand data, they can analyze data and help us make decisions even without our notice. We vote in elections and we think that we are thinking for ourselves. We do everything thinking we are thinking for ourselves, whereas big data already did all the thinking and ensured that our brain is wired in a manner that we think we are making our own decisions. This is how big data is. Now, big data can become very corrupt if there are no ethical considerations around the use of big data. There are players and stakeholders in that space who are already looking at that. Well, I'd like to say that I see as an emerging trend the application of blockchain technology in that space to ensure that data, especially data that you could actually define or classify as critical infrastructure, right, would have to be secured using blockchain technology. Today, Facebook, all of them, they are sitting on some critical infrastructure. And if you, as a government, do not protect that critical infrastructure using advanced technology, such as the one that blockchain provides, there might be corruption in that system. And when that happens, the government may lose the war completely, right? So this is how that I see in terms of emerging trends in blockchain technology. So in other words, we need to start seeing these technologies as innovations that work together. They are not in silos. They are not isolated. So when we say that we understand AI, we should try to also understand Internet of Things, big data, 3D technology, blockchain technology, and quantum computing, which is coming soon, I hear, and that it might have some potentials to disrupt blockchain technology. As lawyers or future lawyers, as compliance officers or future compliance officers, policymakers, regulators, teachers, lecturers, wherever we are, we need to understand that the world is connected and there is nothing in isolation. And I can't stop this class without saying that for everyone here who would like to be a blockchain lawyer, quote unquote, there is no blockchain lawyer. There's only a lawyer. Because when you get into blockchain, you find out that the knowledge you need in that sector, they are knowledge that you need to have had fundamentally. In blockchain, you find contracts, the law of contracts, the law of thoughts, you find securities law, you find investment law, you find data protection law, privacy law. Mention it. There's no law that is not in blockchain. I'm a blockchain lawyer. You're going to be doing blockchain. No, there's no such thing, right? Blockchain technology. And as you can see, it cuts across various industries. If you would like to join us in this space, join all of us in the faculty as faculty members who understand how blockchain works. We're very happy to continue to have conversations like this. I would like to again thank the chairman, Mr. Tobin, for the opportunity provided to me to speak to you about blockchain in terms of compliance and regulations. This has been Senator Ihenian, lead partner at Infusion Lawyers. I think that we can now take questions. Hello, not sure if Rachel is there. Okay, I'll just check the screen to see. Please confirm if you're here and you can hear me very well.
We can hear you, Senator, but we can't hear.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
We can hear you, Senator.
Thank
But we
you.
can't hear Rachel speaking.
Okay, okay. All right. I guess pending when we're able to get Rachel's audio, if the House permits, for the purpose of time management, perhaps we can look at those questions.
Oh,
Rachel, is that
okay.
you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear Rachel.
Yes,
Please go
welcome
on.
back.
Okay. I wonder what was going on. Um, so I was saying thank you, Senator, for your time and for the knowledge sharing. We don't take it for granted. I'm sure the participants here, I mean, even those who might have a little bit of knowledge in this area would have learned something new. So I'm not sure how many questions you'll be able to take, but I'm going to try to run through some of them as quickly as possible. Do you want me to take them one after the other, or do you want us to take them in, tranches, maybe 2 or 3? Senator?
Yes, we can take them one after the other.
Okay, that's
We'll
fine.
follow your judgments. Yes.
Okay, so Adiola Fayoshe is asking, could you take the initial token offering again? I did not quite get your explanation. Thank you.
Okay. So quickly, tokens. I differentiated tokens from coins. I mentioned that while ICOs pertain to coin, ITOs pertain to tokens. And tokens are not coins, and coins are not tokens. Because while coins have their independent blockchain, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, blockchain, coins have their separate blockchain, independent blockchain. Tokens do not. Tokens rely on existing blockchains to be able to work or exist.
Okay, thank you. How can the problem posed by decentralization and anonymity in the blockchain technology be addressed in the light of data privacy and protection?
All right. Generally, people have the perception that when it comes to blockchain, it is anonymous. But this common perception is false. Blockchain is not in itself generally anonymous. There are certain blockchains that are anonymous, but most blockchains are not. For example, Bitcoin blockchain is not anonymous. You will be able to, at least there's some pseudonymity that is associated with using Bitcoin blockchain because it is a public blockchain. Now, there are also types of chains that are really anonymous. You call them the private coins, such as Dash, Monero, Zcash. All of these coins are privacy coins. So they are really about ensuring that they anonymize the user. But Bitcoin, Ethereum, they do not anonymize users. So in addressing privacy issues around that, it will depend on the type of blockchain you're looking at and the application of that blockchain. If you're dealing with a privacy coin, it's extremely difficult to be able to trace who the user is. But it is not so with Bitcoin, as most investigators, law enforcement agencies have found. They've been able to bust a lot of criminal activities when those criminals adopt Bitcoin, for example. Even the Silk Road case early on, I think back in 2012, is a good example of this.
Thank you. In which segment of this discussion do we talk about securitizations, mechanisms, and prospects?
Okay, that's interesting. Perhaps this would need us to go for a mastering blockchain masterclass or another session. I'm not so sure who was taking all the models. But I can say that perhaps we could look at that when we're talking about generally the use of blockchain in perhaps maybe capital markets generally, though, even though that's not what it's about. Yeah, like we said, though, blockchain can be applied in various industries, including that you've talked about, securitization. I think we only need to be able to, first of all, ensure that there's a governing system in place before we start talking about its securitization, because you want to be sure that whatever you're using as a leverage for securitization purposes, you want to be sure that the blockchain at least has some value. There are standards that needs to be set. I'm not sure that we have those standards set in Nigeria, but I do know that in some countries, with the help of the ISO, International Standards Organization, there are certain standardization that is now being introduced, which I think will enhance or assist securitization the way you've taken interest in. That's a conversation maybe we can have after this call.
Okay. Do blockchain transactions operate in autonomous environments? In other words, do they relate to or depend on the gloom or boom of an economy?
Okay, could you repeat that again?
It says, okay, do blockchain transactions operate in autonomous environments? In other words, do they relate to or depend on the gloom or the boom of an economy? I guess that's the free market forces.
Okay. All right. Blockchains differ. There are various kinds of blockchain. I believe you must have been introduced to the types of blockchain: public blockchain, private blockchain, federated or consortium blockchain. So if you understand and the inherent or typical characteristics of each blockchain, you will be able to tell whether it works in one manner or the other. So when it comes to whether it is associated or attached to the economy of a country, for instance, it will depend on what kind of blockchain you're talking about. For instance, the Central Bank of Nigeria adopted the Hyperledger blockchain to build the e-Naira, which is a central bank digital currency. The value of the e-Naira is dependent on the value of the Naira itself, which is the one we know, right? So whether it is e-Naira, electronic Naira, or it is the traditional Naira we know, it is the same thing. Whatever happens to the Naira, which now, for instance, now the value of the Naira has gone really down compared to the exchange, that's the foreign, what's it called, the US dollars. It's the same thing with the e-Naira. Whatever happens to the Naira happens to the e-Naira. That's how it has been set up. So depending on the blockchain, again, you're looking at, you could have whatever happens to on the blockchain affects the value of the other. But it is not so with most blockchains. Bitcoin, for instance, does not depend on any other thing other than certain fundamentals. As long as those fundamentals are there, you won't have a lot of problems. And there are fundamentals around people having confidence. If there's bad news now about Bitcoin, I assure you the price will drop from the over $50,000 it is today to less than maybe $20,000. That's because news has carried it that, hey, Bitcoin is not safe to hold, you know. So those are some things that happen in a country that might affect the value of a blockchain or a cryptocurrency.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator. The tech space is fast innovating and growing. As a young lawyer trying to enter into the tech space as a tech lawyer, what advice can you give to us to scale up? At the same time, not get lost in this ever-growing space?
All right, that's a very good question. Many people ask that question. What I would like to advise is do not get overwhelmed with the increasing number of disruptive technologies coming in. And don't get too soaked into a technology to the extent that you become some kind of a wizard or a whiz kid in town as far as that technology is concerned. Yes, you should understand the technology enough to know how you can play as a lawyer, but don't get too preoccupied with things that IT professionals and software developers or programmers should be worried about. Those will be taking a lot of time off you. Focus on things that are that have implications as far as clients' work is concerned. You have to think of business as well. It's not just about technical stuff. So yes, you understand blockchain, all the technicalities, but how does that bring value to the table for your clients? So you have to be business oriented. You have to also understand clients' business. I think that we need to do that more as lawyers, especially. We need to understand clients' business, because if you understand the client's business, you will be able to bring more value. So as a tech lawyer, don't focus on, I'm a tech lawyer, I'm a fintech lawyer, I'm a blockchain lawyer. No, don't focus on those. Just focus on bringing value to the ecosystem you're interested in. And over time, people will call you blockchain lawyer. People will call you fintech lawyer. People will call you privacy lawyer because they see you bringing value to that. You shouldn't have to call yourself all that. Just find something marketable and stay there. Don't jump from one to the other like some grasshopper, looking for more grass. It's not so. You have to be consistent. And what I like to say again is, as a tech lawyer, quote and unquote, it's good that you build on your T. How do I mean by that? The way that the capital letter T is shaped is that it is deep with legal expertise to the ground, meaning that you have to be rooted in your law. You can't forget your law. That's why I said that you need to understand all those traditional parts as far as law is concerned, your contracts, your torts, your trusts, your securities law, and the rest of them. That is the high. If you don't have a high, you're going to fall off, right? Then the top of the T is where you have what I call multidisciplinary exposure. You need to be able to have your fangs or your wings spread out across certain other interrelated areas beyond law. So you're looking at things like technology, for instance. You're looking at things around emotional intelligence. You're looking at things around project management. You're looking at things beyond law. Those are what bring you value when you begin to cross your T. So that's what I would advise.
Thank you. Thanks so much for this training. I have learned so much since the second class when I joined. Please, I'm interested in knowing what support groups one can join to know more and leverage the opportunities that blockchain offers to lawyers. Thanks again.
Oh, fantastic question. The first place you should start, of course, you're already a member of the NBA. I would, just encourage you to be part of the several committees. For instance, we have this section on business law. I'm a member of the Intellectual Property Committee, as well as a member of the Technology Committee of the section on business law. I think that more lawyers should try leveraging membership of these platforms to be able to build network with colleagues, also bring value to your ecosystem. I keep saying ecosystem because I consider Nigeria still in the formative stages as far as economic opportunities are concerned. So lawyers are not going to be coming in as scavengers. Lawyers need to come in as ecosystem builders. Whether you like it or not, you have to do a lot of dirty work in terms of helping to establish bodies, associations, just to be able to close gaps in the country, right? So there's a lot of work in that space. I would say just network as much as you can. There are associations and bodies outside NB as well that you probably want to look at, depending on your area of expertise or interest. There are people who are interested in venture capital, private equity, insolvency and all that. There are various associations in all of these areas, arbitration as well. Just look for one or two and be a real member. Don't just join and get the ID card. You need to be a real member. You need to participate. Just last week, I was at the the annual trademark stakeholder meeting in Abuja, because it was time for the ecosystem, as far as intellectual property is concerned, to gather and talk about the next 1 year. You need to be in places like that, have conversations with people in that space. And you never know, right? You never know. You always have someone remember that they met Onome somewhere, and then calls lead to business. So please network some more.
Network. That always helps. You mentioned that NFTs does not lose its value, unlike other currencies like Bitcoin. But you mentioned that the first tweet by the erstwhile Honor founder was valued at about $120, but was later valued at $6. My question is, why so, since it was mentioned that NFTs don't lose its value?
Okay, that was probably misunderstanding of what I meant. So when I said NFT, when I talked about NFTs, I said they are irreplaceable. You can replace Bitcoin. You can replace 1,000 naira notes. You can replace $10 million by simply having another $10 million into your account, right? But you can't replace an NFT because they are non-fungible. They are not fungible. You can't convert an NFT in a manner that you have the same NFT. And that gives it inherent value. Not that it won't lose its value, but it has inherent value in the sense that it is irreplaceable. So most things, if you go around, why some museums are very valuable is because it has some of the most irreplaceable items in the world, right? There's only one of it or two of it you will find ever. And those things make the museum extremely valuable. It's the same idea I was trying to bring into NFTs. Number of NFTs, because they consider NFT of the first Twitter founders tweets, is replaceable, of course, is when you take very replaceable. Anyone can take a picture, download it, and all. Millions of dollars. They didn't buy it for that purpose. The person bought is irreplaceable, and that gives it inherent value. So anything of value can come down. There's nothing in this world that doesn't have that doesn't respect the confidence in something anymore. That value comes down immediately, right? It's the same thing with it. It's because Nigerians have lost trust in the Naira. That's why it keeps dancing the way it is dancing in that FX market, right? Then the value stays. So anything can fall. Please take that correction if I got that wrong in the first place, or I was misunderstood. Thank you.
Okay, I was hoping that we'd be able to take maybe 2 more questions or so, but we just have 1 minute left. Should we do 1 more question or just round up?
Yeah, just one.
Okay, which one is short? Look for one that will require. Okay, where do you see blockchain? Or do you want to choose? Maybe you can choose.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Where do you see the future of blockchain? Is it possible to use blockchain for everyday buying and selling? Can it be adopted as a legal tender?
I see blockchain becoming more adopted as we go, as people get to trust it more. Yes, Can it be used for buying and selling? Yes, it can. But will it become legal tender? Maybe not. But a country in the world, El Salvador, I believe, what's that country? Yeah, already had Bitcoin as a legal tender. But I don't see that happening in Nigeria. The best that will happen is that it will become a medium of exchange.
Okay.
A medium of exchange is not exactly the same thing as a legal tender.
Okay,
Thank you.
so thank you so much. It's 1 minute after 4, and I have been directed to stop exactly on time. So again, thank you, Senator. This has been amazing. And thank you for all the information. I'm sure for those who would like to find out more, you can reach out to him. His email is on his presentation, so you can always reach out to him. I hope that's okay, Senator.
Yeah, that's very fine.
To ask any other questions that you might have. We would have loved to take everyone, at this time, but that's just impossible because we just have 2 hours. And thank you, the participants, for sitting through all of this and for attending in the first place. There are going to be other trainings. There's another one coming up soon. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but you should expect it to come soon. The whole point of this is to make sure that the Nigerian lawyer is able to compete. That's the whole point of this. I wish everyone well. And Senator, thank you again. And have
a pleasure.
Lovely rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.